We've been in a series for a few weeks now, about 7 weeks from the book of Proverbs. I didn't intend for it to go even 7 weeks. I've now discovered it could last the rest of my life. We were having a hard time getting out of chapter 3. It's called A Call of Wisdom. And for the last 2 weeks, we have been talking about this one word. And that one word, do you remember it? Trust. We ended up at Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, where it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. And don't you lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. And so for 2 weeks, I have been talking about this phrase that I borrowed from another person. There's a couple in the audience from Stillwater, and they heard this other person speak as I did and use this phrase, a Red Sea moment. And we've been talking about those Red Sea moments of life that they're kind of life and death situations. They're kind of those situations where we do everything we can, everything within our power, everything in our mental ability. We're trying to find an answer. But we can't find an answer. And we're left helpless and we're left hopeless. And yet the lesson is, the idea is, the instruction is, and the example is that we put our trust in God. We acknowledge him. He makes a pathway. So we've been looking at that for a couple of weeks. But I have one more thought this morning, just a brief thought that's kind of tied to this, and I thought maybe we ought to talk about it, still under the heading of trust. The good news this morning is that the big moments of life, the Red Sea moments, those that leave us totally helpless and almost totally hopeless except for the idea of trust, thankfully they don't happen all the time. Maybe they happen once every 6 months. Maybe they happen once a year. You might even go 2 or 3 years or longer before one of those true Red Sea moments hits your life, where you are helpless and you're hopeless. You don't know what to do. You cry out to God, trying to find an answer, and he delivers. But in between those big ones, there are what I call the little ones, little things. Little things that are somewhat of a nuisance, or maybe it would be labeled greater than a nuisance. Something is just not working, and you don't have an immediate answer. Do you understand what I'm saying about that? Just little complications in life, day after day. What do you do? I think Suze may do this better than any person I know, although I don't know anyone as well as I know Suze. But it is often that she says, I had to talk to this person. I did not know what I needed to say. And I said, well, what did you do? And she said, well, I prayed. I asked God to help me, and it worked out. Or I had to be someplace, and I couldn't find my keys, and I didn't know what to do. And what did you do? Well, I prayed. I asked God to help me find my keys. And I found them, and it worked out. That is literally routine for her life. That is routine day after day after day. The little things, she ends up doing the same thing she does with the big things. Now, the little things, she may not be on her knees in tears like she is with the big things. But it's the same concept in the little things of life that become a nuisance, that become a problem. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what to do right now. It's not life and death. It's not, I learned to trust even in those times. Now, what would life be like for all of us? The book of Proverbs, we said over and over again, is not this great theological book of the Bible. It's not talking about salvation by grace through faith. It's not talking about the creation of this world. It's talking about how we live every single day. And what would life be like every single day if I, in the big moments, but then the little moments also, put my trust in God and depend on him to see me through every single moment? Would it get better? Would it be called the abundant life? And so, like I've done in the last 2 weeks, I've gone back and found a couple of stories. One in the Old Testament this week, another in the New. And they are so familiar to every one of you. Just trying to illustrate, though, this need to put trust in God every day, not just in the one days, the one situations, the one dilemmas that are hopeless and helpless. So last week we looked in the life of Elisha, and we looked in 2 Kings chapter 4. We're just going to turn the page. We're going to look at chapter 6. Elisha is this mighty man of God. And what you learn in this little reading is that apparently Elisha has a school to teach younger men how to be prophets. He has a school that he teaches younger men how to be prophets. And as you open up chapter 6, apparently there are several young men who have come to learn how to be prophets, and there are so many that they need a larger meeting space. They need a larger shelter. And so Elisha sends the young men training to be prophets down to the Jordan River. And they're going to cut down some poles or some trees and build a larger shelter. So we pick up the story in verse 4. Elisha went with them. They went to the Jordan, began to cut down trees. As one of them was cutting down a tree, an iron axe head fell into the water. "Oh, no, my Lord," he cried out. It was borrowed. Now just stop there and think about what's happened. I suspect in that day and time, an iron anything was rare. I suspect that a piece of iron shaped into an axe head was even more rare. And he had borrowed this, and he'd gone down to the river Jordan, and he was cutting down trees. And it slips off the handle, or the handle breaks, and the iron ends up in the river. I don't know how deep the river is at that spot. But have you ever heard the term, the muddy river Jordan? Have you heard people refer to it like that? Sue's just got back a couple days ago from the Mediterranean, and she said the water there in some places was so blue and so clear you could see. You can't see in this muddy river. And when iron drops into the water, where does it go? As fast as it can. All the way to the bottom. And the young prophets wondering, what am I going to do? I can't find it. And he had borrowed it. It's one thing for me to lose something that's special to me that I own. It's something else if I borrowed it. In fact, I don't borrow. It is rare that I would borrow anything from anybody. Even my dad, I did not like to borrow and usually wouldn't borrow anything. Because I kind of figured if I borrow it and I skin it up, or I mess it up, or I destroy it, I might not have the wherewithal to replace it. I just don't like to borrow. Now, that situation's not, it's not one of those Red Sea moments, is it? But does that not happen often in life? Do you not have accidents that happen, mistakes that are made, situations that arise, and everything's messed up for the moment? Not major, but just messed up. I've got a piece of iron. It's shaped into an axe head. I'm chopping down a tree, and all of a sudden, the handle breaks or it flies off the end. It's lost and it's borrowed. What in the world am I going to do? And he is horrified by it. So what does he do? Well, he goes to Elisha. He goes to Elisha. Now that's kind of a picture of us, like we would go to God, because Elisha is this man who represents God. And he's the one who took over from Elijah. He's the one who asked, Elijah, could I have a double portion of your spirit? He's the one who watched Elisha be carried up into the whirlwind, never tasting death. And I assume he got that double portion. My Lord, it was borrowed. And so the story continues. The man of God asked, where did it fall? When he showed him the place, Elisha cut a stick and threw it in there and made the iron float. Now, do you believe that story? See, there are a lot of people who will tell you that those kind of stories in the Bible just can't be real. They just can't be real. But that's real. We believe it. We choose to believe it. The iron floats, and he says, just lift it out. And the man reached out his hand, and he took it. Now, how do you think the young man felt at that moment? How do you think he felt? So Sue's asked me some time ago, what's your favorite emotion? I've told you this, what's your favorite emotion? And I played with some different emotions and different words, and she said, mine is relief. To get relief. Can you imagine how relieved that young man is? I have this problem. I've lost something I borrowed. I can't find it. I never will find it. And suddenly he goes to the man of God, and the man of God says, let me take care of it for you. Wow. Now you jump over to the New Testament. In the New Testament, there's another story. It's in John chapter 2. In John chapter 2, it's Jesus. And John says this is the very first miracle that Jesus ever did. And he did not come to this particular place to do any kind of a miracle. I suspect it was a family friend, because his mother is a hostess at this wedding. On the third day, a wedding took place in Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there. Jesus and his disciples had been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, they have no more wine. Now, stop and just kind of imagine the story for a moment. In that day, hospitality was big. It was a major thing. And so they have all these guests who have come to this wedding. It's a big affair. And everybody's drinking the wine. But they run out. So you ladies who are responsible for the big lunch or the big dinner, and you have all the people into your home, and you prepared, and all of a sudden the people come, and the main course is not enough, and you run out, and people are left without all that they want. How do you feel? For some reason, she's feeling this burden, this feeling of desperation, this failure. Now, is that a big thing? Is that a life or death thing? No, it's not a major thing. It's just one of those little things of life that we run into week after week after week after week. For we have things that break, and we have things that don't work, and we have things where we mess up, and we have things we don't prepare well for, and then we get caught. And what do? Well, she goes directly to Jesus. You can almost picture Jesus and his apostles standing over here to the side, watching everybody at the wedding feast, enjoying the celebration. And here comes his mother. We don't have any more wine. Now, she knows more about Jesus than any other person alive at this moment, because Joseph, her husband, is not alive. Read. Why do you have all of it? My hour's not yet come. His mother said to the servants, do whatever he tells you to do. Where did she go? Jesus, I have a problem. What is that to me? What do I have to do with wine? My time has not yet come. You can almost see her fluttering around. She just says, do whatever he tells you to do. And so here's what he does. Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water. They filled them to the brim. He told them, now draw some water out. They take it to the master of the banquet. They did so. Master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn it from water knew. Then he said to the bridegroom, everyone brings out the choice wine first, and the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink, when they're kind of tipsy. But you saved the best till now. Now, who saved the moment? Who saved the moment? Jesus did. Is it a big thing? No. See, that last part of that proverb said, in all your ways acknowledge him. In everything acknowledge him. He will make your paths straight. I found myself wondering at all this. There in Matthew chapter 6, when Jesus says, I don't want you worried about things. You remember that passage? He said, why do you worry about things like what you're going to wear? Or why do you worry about things like what you're going to eat? Or why do you worry about things like where you're going to live? Why do you worry about all these things of life? He says it's not going to do you any good. And your Father already knows what you need. And we usually separate this, but I find myself wondering, is it supposed to be separated? Because he says, if you seek first the kingdom of God, all these things will be added to you. Seek first. It seems to be the instruction is tied to that. And maybe he's saying, if you'll just keep seeking God, if you keep going to God, then he'll take care of these situations. So I found myself wondering, isn't it what we're supposed to be doing? In the big things, yes, but in the little things every day, day after day, shouldn't we be going to God with it? I have a problem at the banquet I can't figure out. I'm kind of in a pinch. I have a problem with something I borrowed. I'm kind of in a pinch. I have a problem with this talk I've got to give. I've got a problem with this person I'm supposed to meet. I'm a little bit afraid in this situation. Can you help? Will you help? Do you think God cares about that stuff? I think God cares about everything. There's another place that Jesus talks about in Matthew chapter 7. He said, you fathers on earth know how to love your children. You know how to do that. You love them so much that if your son would ask you for a fish, would you give him a snake? No. He said, your Father knows so much more. He knows how to give you good gifts. When our children, though they're grown, ask me for anything, I am thrilled. They rarely do. But when they do, I am thrilled. And when they do, on those rare occasions, do you think that I am anxious and looking for ways to be able to accommodate them as fast as I possibly can? Now, if I thought they were abusing me or if I thought they were mishandling things, I'm just talking about they're in need. Do you think I don't want to try on every single situation? So when Suze was gone a week ago last night, Mitch called and he said, Audrey's not feeling well. I think he just did it because he thought I was here by myself. He said, I'm going to come into town. Let's run to Clinton. Let's get something to eat. We did. We went to Mazzio's and got a sandwich. We're leaving Mazzio's, and he said, can we stop at Brahms? And Audrey wants some milk. And so we stopped and got some milk. He put it in the back seat of my pickup. He had been gone 45 minutes. And Audrey texted me and said, Mitch forgot the milk in the back of the pickup. Would you put it in the refrigerator in the garage, and we'll get it maybe sometime tomorrow? I said, no. I will come right now. I will come and bring it right now. She said, we don't need it till, I'll come right now. I don't have anything else to do. I wanted to go help. I didn't want them to make a special trip to town. Is that making sense to any of you? How do you think God feels? And I'm kind of wondering this. Just look at this. I'm kind of wondering if God sees me trusting him in the little ordinary things day after day, if that doesn't thrill him so, and if that doesn't make him want even more to help me in those times that are so very difficult. Because what if, just what if, the only time he ever hears from me is when I am in so much trouble I can't get any direction for life, and that's the only time I show up. Does that not sound kind of peculiar to you? If the only time God ever hears me begging him is when I can't figure it out myself, and if I can't get it figured out, I'm in serious, serious trouble? Or would God like it better if I talked to him all along the way, day after day, and said, I don't know exactly how to handle this thing. I feel kind of pressure on this. I'm kind of in a mess here. And I want you to help me. I'm asking you to help me, please. Then I'm wondering in the big things if he's not more ready to help. I also wonder this. If I could learn to trust in smaller things, would that lead me automatically when I have a big thing to say with more confidence, God, I know you can help me out of this. You're the only one. So if I can learn how to do it every day in little thing after little thing after little thing, would the big things come much more naturally? And then I'm wondering this last thing. If God really wants me to lead an abundant life, and if Jesus really did come that I might have life and have it more abundantly, if he really did want me to have salvation and forgiveness of sins, but also to live life well, which is what the book of Proverbs seems to be about, is that the key to abundant life, or at least one of them? That I would learn to trust every single day. Put in all my little ways every day, acknowledge him, acknowledge him, acknowledge him. And then if something major comes, I acknowledge him. And he will make my path straight. Is that not a confident way of living? Is that not a wonderful way to live? Someone in this audience or someone listening from a distance may be going through a Red Sea moment. It's interesting people listen because this morning I was sitting out there with the two Gregs and Burke, and it popped up on my phone. I'm not on social media except for LinkedIn. And I got a message on LinkedIn from a lady I hadn't thought about in a long time. And she said, I listened to the sermon last week. And I don't know. If we learn how to trust, if we learn how to do it little and big, and we learn how to do little things, and then big things, couldn't I live more happily and more freely and more abundantly? I'm not going to talk about trust again for a while, but I hope you understand. We are foul, fallible people. We are weak people. We are not able to take care of all the situations. We're not very good at a lot of things. And God is perfect with everything. So it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, with all your being, with all your might. You trust in the Lord. Don't keep trying to do it all yourself. That's what a paraphrase would say. Don't keep leaning on your own understanding. Don't think you're so smart you can get it all done. But in everything you acknowledge Him. And He'll make your path straight. He'll take care of you. That's how I want to live. I'm not living that way like I should. That's how I want to live. And Jesus told us to do that. In the New Testament, He told us. In the Sermon on the Mount, just trust that way in every little thing and seek God. And He will, in essence, make your path straight. The only reason we meet here is because Jesus died for us. The only reason we meet here is because Jesus made life abundant possible and life eternal possible. The only reason we meet is because we want to glorify Him and honor Him because He gave us all this. We have such wonderful lives. And so we remember Jesus every single Sunday we come together. We take some bread, we take some fruit of the vine, and we remember what Jesus did for us so that we could have all this assurance. Maybe that's the best word of the whole thing, is assurance. We have assurance of salvation. We have assurance that God is trustworthy in every single thing we do.